Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Lexa Peterson, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Warrant Officer Class 1, Kim Owen. We warmly welcome the family of Private Patrick Joseph Farrell, whose story will be told shortly. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. If able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops at Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed at the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record they themselves made. Tonight we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Patrick Joseph Farrell. Patrick Farrell was born on the 11th of April 1877 in Lanchester, near Durham, England. He was the third youngest of 10 children born to the Irish miner Michael Farrell and his wife Susan. The family lived around Durham throughout Patrick's childhood. He and his siblings attended St Joseph's School in West Stanley, while his father and eldest brother worked as miners in Tanfield. In February 1886, Patrick's older sisters Margaret and Helen Ann emigrated to Queensland aboard the Cloncurry. 3 months after the birth of his youngest brother in March 1887, the rest of the family sailed from London aboard the ship Chibasa, arriving in Townsville on the 28th of September. In Queensland, they settled in Charters Towers, where Michael and the older Farrell boys continued to work as miners. After finishing his schooling, Patrick worked as an apprentice iron moulder with David Davies before finding employment with Walkers Limited in Maryborough. While in Maryborough, he lived at the local London boarding house and befriended Mrs. A. Corrie, the daughter of the owner of the boarding house and the estranged wife of a fellow iron moulder, Robert Corrie. Known to his friends as Joe, he was an active member in the local Maryborough community and earned a reputation as a skillful and willing worker with many friends. Patrick enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 17th of November 1915 at Bundaberg, Queensland. He soon joined reinforcements of the 25th Battalion for training at a Nogra camp. While in Brisbane in early December, Patrick was charged with drunkenness and willfully breaking 2 panels of glass at Tattersalls Hotel. He was fined 5 shillings and ordered to pay an extra 13 shillings to cover the cost of the damages and a cab fare. Before leaving Australia, Patrick requested that the military pay office provide his mother 3 shillings per day out of his own pay. After 3 months of training, Private Patrick Farrell departed Sydney in the troopship Wiltshire on the 8th of February 1917, bound for England. Patrick arrived in Plymouth on the 11th of April 1917 and marched into the 7th Training Battalion's camp in Rolleston the same day. While preparing for service on the Western Front at Rolleston, Patrick ran afoul of military authorities. Found absent without leave overnight on the 14th of May, he was confined to camp for a day and forfeited 3 days of pay as punishment. By July 1917, Patrick was ready to leave the training battalion. He proceeded overseas to France on the 30th of July and was admitted to the 2nd Australian Divisional Base Depot the next day. After 2 weeks at Base Depot, Patrick marched out to join the 25th Battalion in billets outside Saint-Omer in northern France. The 25th remained outside Saint-Omer, training and resting until the 12th of September, when they moved to Winnipeg Camp outside Stanfordor on the Franco-Belgian border. On the 17th of September, the battalion moved forward into Belgium, taking over the front line outside Westhurk the next day. They would be taking part in the next big attack of the Allied offensive aimed at capturing Passchendaele. Early in the morning of the 20th of September, the men of A Company of the 25th Battalion were behind their jumping off tape in their trenches. They were waiting for the signal to launch the attack on their objectives around Sonnenbarker Ridge and along Menin Road. Just after 5:40 a.m, as the men were beginning to leave their trenches, Patrick received a direct hit from an enemy shell, known among the soldiers as a whiz-bang. The shell hit him in the head, leaving a deep, fatal wound. Though some of his fellow soldiers stated that the shell had blown his head clean off. Private A. Muirhead recalled that Patrick never uttered a word, simply sank back. The hit killed him instantly. He was 40 years old. Although a note in Patrick's service records stated that his remains were buried after his death, his grave could not be located after the end of the war. He is commemorated on the Menin Gate Memorial alongside the names of over 6,000 Australians who served in Ypres campaign and have no known grave. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, amongst almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Patrick Joseph Farrell, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozieres or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over, but in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support during the Memorials Development Project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.